What is up, RotoGrinders? Welcome to another edition of Grinders Live. My name is TJ Zwarich. Dean 7832947609 is on vacation, and so I'll be hosting things here with you. But I'm not by myself. I am joined by Bobby Gomes. How you doing, Bobby?
Doing well. Excited for this slate. I think it's an interesting tournament slate. It's one of these slates the day after the trade deadline that you don't really want to play, but I'll definitely have some lineups tonight.
I just kind of love the chaos of all
Me
of this.
too. I feel like that's like the prevailing narrative around the industry is no one wants to play this, but I embrace it.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too. I am no one right now. Yesterday was so close to a big day for me on the DFS side of things. Went about breaking even, but I was Chris Paul getting 2.5 more rebounds, points, and assists away from about a 2K night on Prize Picks, hitting all my Prize Picks teams. But he finished just short, and he was kind of my core play that I had built a lot around. So that was tough. But you know what? We move on to tonight. We had a 4-game slate last night, 11 games tonight. Still some teams being heavily impacted by the trade deadline, some new additions not being available yet. We kind of thought we were going to see the Spurs being with only like 8 available, but a couple of their additions are going to be able to be suiting up for them today. So we have a very interesting slate. Giannis Antetokounmpo stands alone above the 12K range on DraftKings. And then we just have a ton of value today. What is kind of your view of this slate as a whole before we dive into things game by game?
I think everything we just kind of hit on, right? Like total chaos. I love it. But yeah, basically these Spurs guys, people are going to be making a lot of decisions based on projections at 7 o'clock, right? We're going to get a lot of these Spurs guys. If you're on any projection set across the industry, pretty much, you're going to see Spurs. So for me, it's just trying to figure out who in Pop's rotation is going to basically do it to me tonight and try to stay away from that guy, I'd say, right? Like trying to figure out who the bad chalk is in that rotation. And obviously you have the other strong chalk play, I would say, is Mark Williams in the 7:30 game versus the Celtics. It's a great spot for Mark Williams from a projection standpoint, but not so much from a matchup standpoint. So yeah, that's pretty much just trying to figure out construction from that point. And then yeah, you hit on Giannis, like he's the top stud, I feel like.
Yeah, I'm getting to a lot of Giannis tonight. I'm also getting to a lot of Paul George and Damian Lillard as my main spend ups. And then adjusting here based on the value we're going to see. But let's start going game by game because we got 11. The crunch time guys are coming in coming in earlier than usual. Now coming in, I believe, 6:20, as opposed to, I don't remember what the Eastern time stuff, but it's at the 20 as opposed to the 30 now to give them a little bit more time to go through things and answer QQs. So let's start going through this. We begin with the New York Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers. 108 for the total for the Knicks, 114 for the Philadelphia 76ers here. Sixers favored by 6.5 points. With all the potential value and what have you on tonight's slate, I can't really see myself going to too many New York Knicks today.
Yeah, I don't have a ton of Knicks. Maybe the best case you can make for is a guy like Barrett. Outside of that, not getting to Randall, not getting to Brunson. Barrett would be the only one that I'd be interested in playing in 150, but I don't love it. He's always a tough roster, so 6,400 going to see minutes, but all these guys might get their minutes. Josh Hart's not in tonight, so I don't think it would matter for tonight, correct? But I feel like they'd all take a drop in minutes when Hart joins the team.
Yeah, I agree with you there, and it's funny. I included Barrett, Randall, and Jalen Brunson in my pool in my 150 build here. And I didn't end up getting to any of them. I included them in the pool, but they didn't end up getting into any of my lineups. So this New York team going up against the good Philly defense, one of the lower totals on the slate. I don't really have much interest in getting to the Knicks here. We have so many great games coming up. But how about this Philly side of things? We have Joel Embiid questionable. Obviously, if he's out, that's going to open up a ton of value here. But we're not really expecting him to be out. This is a
He's
dude that is
every night,
questionable
right?
all the time. Exactly. And so we're expecting Joel Embiid to play. And if he does, that kind of makes it so the James Hardens, the Tobias Harris, the Tyrese Maxeys don't really want to get to them all that much either. It kind of gives me Embiid as the only one I want to be getting to.
Yeah, Embiid would be my favorite. I think Melton's in play at 4,400. Just from that, like we could see him with getting an increased use of minute in terms of minutes. He'd be the only one outside of Embiid that I'd have some interest in. If Embiid is out, Harden, all these guys come more into play, but I still think there are better plays on the slate. Any thoughts on Melton?
His price tag is cheap enough that I don't hate the idea of getting to him, but we just have so much value on this slate that I don't think I really want to go to him when I don't know if he's going to be getting, kind of he'll get low 30s. It's just I kind of feel like low 30s minutes today. I just kind of feel like what's the ceiling, like maybe he puts up 30, maybe he puts up 35, and that's great. You definitely are nowhere close to mad at that, but I'm not really worried about a slate breaking performance from this guy. And with so much other value out there, I feel myself going there instead.
Yeah, that's fair. I pretty much have the same thought process around it. I just thought he should be mentioned.
Yeah, like his price is good on on a slate that would be a bit smaller. It'd definitely be somebody I'd be looking to target today. But we got so many fun and high-paced teams with players missing today. Let's keep this one rolling because we got one of these teams coming up. Phoenix against Indiana, 2.5 point spread, 230.5 total. We got the Phoenix side of things. They're going to get Devin Booker back for this one, but they did just trade away Cameron Johnson, Mikal Bridges, and they're still not going to have TJ Warren or Kevin Durant available for this one. So Booker in limited minutes, still coming back from that injury, is not somebody I'm looking to get to. But the rest of this Phoenix team, Ayton, Paul, and maybe even some of the value with Craig, Okaji, and Wainwright, I think are definitely in play today.
Yeah, I like Ayton. I think he's a pretty strong play, especially in tournaments. What do we have as Ayton's ownership coming in at?
About 7% right now.
Yeah, I'll be over that. I think Ayton's are really we've played bigs versus Indy all year. We have him for 32 minutes, 42 fantasy points. Like I said at the top of the show, I think fading one of these chalk centers is the route I'm taking tonight. And I think Ayton's one of the centers that I'm going to be attacking. You can even make a case on the other side to play some Miles Turner. I don't know how much I'd get, but in 150, I think he's viable as well. Unless
Miles Turner is another one of those guys that is in my pool, but the lineup builder just didn't end up getting me any Miles Turner today. I like the Ayton call. Chris Paul is still a fine play. He burned me so bad last night on Prize Picks, but he is still a good play. Can't have that type of recency bias, but I think the place I'm most interested in getting to in this team, I'll have some sprinkles of Wainwright and Craig, but it's mainly Josh Okaji as the primary player I'm looking to get to on this team for some value. He'll probably play that 3/4 role. I'm making a rule that I only want to play one of Craig, Okaji, and Wainwright. But we see last night, obviously Booker's back now, 32 minutes, 44 fantasy points for Josh Okaji. Put up 17 shot attempts. I don't think we can expect that type of performance again with Devin Booker back, but this is a guy who, if it happens to be a blowout either way, he'll get lots of run, and even if it's a close game, he might end up closing for this team. So Josh Okaji is a value play that I like in this one as well. Pivoting over to the Indiana side, these guys were missing a lot of players, and now they're not. Somebody like a Benedict Mathurin, he projects pretty well. He's all right, but I kind of view him in the similar lens as somebody like DeAnthony Melton, who we talked about, just what really is the upside on an 11-game slate. And so it's mainly going to be Halliburton, Turner, and Hield as guys that I'll leave in my pool. but I'm not looking to attack them today.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I can always get to Halliburton. Healed, he's fine. Turner would be my favorite, but they're not priorities by any means.
We got a question in chat, and it's what is good in quotations value? Now, I think that totally depends on the slate. Good value just means they're going to do well for their salary, but that on an 11-game slate, especially after the trade deadline, means something totally different than on a 3-game slate. On a 3-game slate, that value just means it might beat 5x. On an 11-game slate, you might need it to be 10x their salary. But what it basically comes down to, it's the plays that are good, project for a good fantasy score in comparison to their salary, and help you build the lineups that you want to build. Did I do all right for that?
I'd be looking for like 7 to 8x for my value guys. Large.
Tonight, I think that's going to be necessary. Like I want, not only do I want at least that, but I'm looking for ceilings today. Like I'm not trying to play a 4K guy that I don't see able to put up 40 fantasy points. Do I expect them to put up 40 fantasy points? No. But I want that ceiling tonight. Otherwise, I'm just not really looking to get there. That's why I don't see myself getting to too many of the likes of like Torrey Craig and DeAnthony Melton, Benedict Mathurin, that kind of range here. But speaking of value, we definitely have some coming up in this next game. San Antonio Spurs facing the Detroit Pistons. Now, if you recognize more than 2 or 3 names on this team as a casual basketball fan, I'd be very surprised. As DFSers, we happen to be used to a few more of these names on the San Antonio sides, but they're going to have 10 players available tonight. Malachi Branham, Keita Bates-Diop, Zach Collins, Doug McDermott, Stanley Johnson, Devontae Graham, Isaiah Roby, Blake Wesley, Dominic Barlow, and Gorgui Dieng. Not a lot of household names here, leading us to get about 60% ownership for Zach Collins over on DraftKings. On Fanduel, where he's priced up a little bit more, guess what? 66% projected ownership over there. I think Zach Collins is a very good play today, but that's something I'm going to be definitely underweight on. Probably about half of what the field is getting to there. How about you?
Yeah, I think playing like in construction, it's going to be Mark Williams and Collins, like we kind of hit on. I do worry about Collins. I do think that they traded away Podol because obviously they want him to be the guy, but I do worry about Pop, and the industry is going to be very much so on Zach Collins today. He's probably going to be the highest owned player on the slate. It's an 11-game slate. I think in tournaments, like it's just natural to come under on him just because of the minutes opportunity you're going to get elsewhere. I wouldn't full fade, but coming under, I think makes sense. Coming in under on him in terms of your exposure makes sense.
My last build I went through ended up getting about, let's see, how much Zach Collins did I get to in my last build? About 29%. So under half of what the field is getting to today. So that's going to be one of the bigger stands that I'm trying to get to. I think Zach Collins is very good value. He's a cash game lock. But in tournaments today, we just have so much good value that I am very willing to get underweight on a guy like Zach Collins today, who's just picking up wild ownership. If we're talking about pivots, I'm looking to somebody like Isaiah Roby as a phenomenal pivot off of Zach Collins today. I still kind of want to wait and see what this starting lineup is. Like, if Pop is like, hey, I know Gorgui Dieng, he's been on my team lots, I'm going to throw him in the starting lineup, then I want to get to quite a bit of him today. But as of right now, I don't think that's something we're very much projecting. Devontae Graham is a player that can put up big numbers in limited amounts of minutes if he gets shooting well, and he's active for them today. How do you prioritize these Spurs outside of Zach Collins? To me, I think it's going to be Stanley Johnson, number 1, Isaiah Roby, number 3. Sorry, that's poor counting. I was still counting Zach Collins in my head. But if we're not counting Zach Collins, then it would be Stanley Johnson, number 1, Isaiah Roby, number 2, and then I want to get some sprinkles in of Devontae Graham, Keita Bates-Diop, Malachi Branham, Blake Wesley.
Yeah, so it would probably be Stanley Johnson for me too, as the number two. In terms of order, I'd say Stanley. I would go Roby, Graham, and then Branham. I'm not big on Branham today.
Branham's just priced up, right?
We're missing Wesley too. Blake Wesley. Wesley might be my favorite. Let me read that. I'd go Collins, Stanley Johnson, Blake Wesley, Keita Bates, Branham, Roby, and Graham, I guess. But this could all change when we get starting lineups.
My thoughts today in an MME setting are I don't want to get to a ton of these Spurs, but I want to be getting to a little bit of them in each of my lineups. So I want to get Zach Collins or Isaiah Roby. I want to get one of Bates Diop, Stanley Johnson, and that set of wings. I want one of Branham, Wesley, Devontae Graham, but I don't want to be playing those guys too much together. So I have a rule right now in lineup HQ. I want 1 to 3 Spurs in every single one of my lineup. But I also have that rule that I only want max 1 of Collins and Roby. I only want max 1 of Bates Diop and Stanley Johnson. Or I might have made it that I grouped them all together and said max 2 of that group and kind of including them all as bigs. So that's kind of how I'm prioritizing these guys today. Get overweight. Probably get even on Wesley, overweight on all of the Spurs outside of Zach Collins, and get underweight on Zach Collins today.
So you have max 2 of Zach Collins, Roby. Who are the other 2?
Roby, Collins, Bates Diop, and Stanley Johnson.
Just made that rule myself. Yeah, I like that. I think that's the way to go.
1 to 2 of those guys are going to have very good games for their prices. I just don't necessarily know which ones they're going to be.
I'm worried about getting a lot of Collins and Stanley Johnson together as like the majority chalk in the first 2 games.
That's how I am too. Currently, like my single entry right now, it definitely could adjust. I was hoping to get Collins out of it, but we did have a question right now in YouTube chat as well, so it's a good time to talk about it. Pardon me. Would you play Zach Collins in a single entry or a 3-max style in DK? In my single entry, it does currently have Zach Collins as the last piece, but that's something I'm looking to maybe pivot off of. I have Roby and Zach Collins in my single entry team right now, and I'm going with the Stanley Johnson fade. But we got you covered in DFS. We got you covered at scoresandodds.com as well for betting, your number one place for all things sports betting. Check it out for everything you need to make you a better sports bettor, including our Parlay IQ tool with automated Fanduel Sportsbook integration. Build your optimized same-game parlay based on thousands of simulated games worth of data, and with a click of a button, you can bring that bet slip directly into the Fanduel Sportsbook. This San Antonio Spur and Detroit Piston basketball game, I think, could potentially have a lot of good props if those things are listed on there. So make sure you check out scoresandodds.com for that as well. Let's pivot to this Detroit side of things. Before we do, make sure you hit the like button for us. We got almost 150 people watching right now, only 20 likes. Bump that like button up for us. It does so much getting in the YouTube algorithm, getting recommended for shows and having us pop up on the main screen. It's so very important. So please help us out. Hit that like button. Some recent news here that does impact Detroit. We got Jalen McDaniels available to make his Sixers debut today, so that's news. But for this game specifically, James Wiseman will not be able to make his debut for Detroit. And so if we want to be getting to a few of these Spurs, I do like the idea of getting to some of these Detroit players as runbacks. Bogdanovich, Ivy, Stewart, Duren, fine with all of them. But the main prize today, by a fairly wide margin on DraftKings, where he is 4.7K, is Killian Hayes, who's now back in the starting lineup.
Yeah, I love Killian. Like the idea of running this back versus the San Antonio Spurs chalk. Stewart and Duren, I think, are good pivots off these chalk centers. I also think that I want to get your opinion. Do you think you can play Stewart and Duren together?
No. maybe on a smaller slate, but on this 11-game slate, no. I'm actually struggling to even get to Duren in my pool at all because of how many other value centers I want to get to. So
Yeah,
Stewart has that power forward eligibility.
I definitely got more Stewart than Duren.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too, just because of that power forward eligibility.
Yeah, so outside of that, like Killian's the best play. Jaden Ivey's probably second best for me. I think Bojan is always in play at 6'3", Hamadou at 3'4", and larger field stuff. I think you can make a case for that. That would really be the main Pistons for me.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking as well. I don't even like Duren. I feel like maybe I should be putting him back in my pool here just because he is a decent play, but he's projecting well. He's not getting very much ownership. The tough thing for me is there's just so many other good centers I want to play today that I'm struggling to get to somebody like Jalen Duren in this one. So I'm on the same page. Killian Hayes is definitely the main target for me in this one. That's somebody I want to get 20 to 30% of tonight. And then Jalen Duren, Isaiah Stewart's a little bit of sprinkles. Jaden Ivey and Bojan Bogdanovic, they got high ceilings, so there's somebody that I want to be keeping in my pool as well for this one. Speaking of major value, going to the 7:30 games, we have Charlotte, we have Boston, and we got to start with the Charlotte side of things because although they have 107 and a half or just under that total, which is the second lowest total on the slate, this is one of the best teams for value on the slate because they just traded Mason Plumlee and these prices have not adjusted to it yet on DraftKings. So we got actually who we're projecting to start is Nick Richards, but the better fantasy point per minute guy, Mark Williams, who's expected to split these center minutes with him, is coming in a little bit higher owned, a little bit higher projected. How are you handling this Charlotte Big situation today? Because I got a rule that I set, but I'm interested to know what yours is as well with Mark Williams and Nick Richards just being this mega value.
You have a most one with the two of them, I would imagine, correct?
I want exactly one Mark Williams, Nick Richards, and PJ Washington in every lineup.
Yeah, so for me, I'd have some concern because I just think that the matchup is difficult. But I also think Mark Williams and Richards both project extremely well as value plays. Just Robert Williams' defense for likely Richards would be something that, you could definitely play them together. For me, I still don't want to be fully locked on either Williams or Collins. So I do think there are better centers too. So I don't mind the rule. If you have no intentional fading, Jock Collins, I don't know what you're doing with Collins.
I got 30% Collins as it stands right now, so that's about half of what the field is getting, and I have 50% Mark Williams. So I'm basically just swapping those two and what the field is doing. The field's going to get 30% Mark Williams or a little bit less, 50 to 60% Zach Collins. I'm just trying to swap those two, and then I'm getting to about 30% Zach Collins, 30% Nick Richards, 20% Blake Wesley and Isaiah Roby, who we talked about earlier, and then 30% Stanley Johnson, which is the one that makes me the most uncomfortable. But there is one other big value that we haven't talked about that I am also getting 30 to 40% of that we will get to very shortly.
Yeah, so Mark Williams and Nick Richards. I think I'm probably in my single entry team. I'm currently playing Collins and fading Williams. If Nick Richards starts, I'm probably not going to be playing a Charlotte Big in single entry. In larger field stuff, I'll definitely have exposure to both. They would be the only two that I have interest in, though.
Get ready to adjust this a little bit. Mark Williams, I think, is going to get a little bit tougher to fade because they did just announce that he will start tonight. So that means Nick Richards off the bench and Mark Williams come in as the starting lineup. That's kind of twofold because, like you mentioned, that means more Robert Williams defense, which is not a good thing. That is a bad thing. But the good aspect of that is we had these guys splitting that 48 minutes evenly when Mark Williams was coming off the bench. I think that is now going to transition a little bit to more likely a 28-minute projection for Mark Williams and maybe
I could see him playing 30
for Nick Richards. Yeah.
I could see Williams playing 30 and at 1.2 fantasy point per minute. It's going to be tough to really fade him at that price. I still think that there's merits of fading both one of him or Collins. That's why I made that rule at most one for Williams and Collins and my larger field stuff. Just because I think a lot of the value is at the center position, and they are only center eligible, both of them. I will be playing Williams. I'm not fully going to fade him in large field stuff. Obviously, I'll probably have a good number, but him and Collins both really good plays too. But that the path in terms of construction that I'm trying to get different is fading one of these centers.
I like that idea, and I mean, we'll maybe see this ownership adjust now, but if it does stand, be like 60% Collins and 30% Mark Williams, I really think the better fade in that scenario then would be Zach Collins, just because him being so crazy high owned here.
I think so too. So I thought that too, and I just had an argument with a couple of my buddies, like pretty much that it's Mark Williams that we should play and call. But now I decided to go. I've leaned towards what they were saying and just playing Collins. But that was my original thought process.
I got a rule that I want one of Collins, Rope, and Roby. I got a rule that I want one of Mark Williams, Nick Richards, and PJ Washington. We haven't talked much about Washington, and I think he's really the fantastic tournament play here, because obviously if this one turns into a bit of a blowout and Boston just stomps on these guys, PJ Washington isn't going to have that strong of a game if he gets limited in his minutes, but we're currently projecting him for 36 minutes. He might play the center position today as well. We don't know that these 48 minutes are going to be split between PJ Washington and Nick Richards, especially because you look at the Celtics team, we still have Al Horford listed as questionable. Al Horford may not be in for this one. And so if Horford doesn't play, then Robert Williams is the only legit center left on this team. And so PJ Washington probably will play 5 and might even close at the 5 if this game is somewhat close. So PJ Washington is a guy that I want to get overweight to in tournaments. I'm getting about 10 to 20% of him. And then I'll probably get 50 to 60% Williams, 10 to 20% Nick Richards. Terry Rozier, I think, get a little bit of revenge is somewhat interesting. He's the type of guy that I think will try and shoot more shots, just specifically because it's Boston. But having said that, I still think that's someone I just want to get to about 5-ish% in tournaments. Same with LaMelo Ball today.
Yeah, I don't have much interest in these other Charlotte guys. The PJ Washington, that's the first I've heard anyone bring his name up pretty much all day. I'm not saying he's a bad play. I just actually like your thought process behind it, so I might add him to the pool. But what's his tag currently?
He is 5'9" on DraftKings, 5'8" on FanDuel. So he's got a bit better of a price tag on FanDuel, especially where those steals and blocks are worth more. But to me, it's just like, even if Boston routes these guys, Williams, Richards, or Washington will have a very good game for their salary. One of these guys should. And so that's why I want to make sure I get one of them.
7x.
I got I don't know how much we can really know though, because this is such a totally different situation for Charlotte,
I get that thought process, and I am going to add him to my pool for that reason.
Because I'm just thinking, how many games does Plumlee miss this year?
What position eligibility does he have? Power forward, center, yeah. I think that's a fair. I think I like that.
It just, to me, the two sort of lineup constructions that can be great for tournaments today is somebody like PJ Washington with Zach Collins. You get the chalky guy with the off the board one. Somebody like Mark Williams, but with Isaiah Roby instead of Zach Collins. I think those are just two pivots you can make to get very different than the field here. Let's look at this Boston team. Jalen Williams hurt his neck, Jalen Brown, one of my favorite players in the league, and I messed up his name. It was because we were talking about Jalen Williams before the show. Jalen Brown hurt his neck, hurt his face. He's going to be out through the All-Star break, not playing in this one. Jason Tatum looks like one of the strongest spend-ups on the slate. Derek White picking up some ownership. Al Horford listed as questionable in this one. If he is out, that will really skyrocket Robert Williams for me, who I already think is a strong tournament play today. Talk to me about this Boston team.
I think they all, Tatum now looks very strong. My issue with Tatum is just in these situations where he's the guy versus teams, it seems like he takes his foot off the gas. I know in Detroit he got there the other night, But in the beginning, I was a little worried. If obviously Brown's sitting now, I'm still definitely playing Tatum. I think he's a very strong play, but I think you do have to exercise caution. I don't think he's I still prefer Giannis to Tatum. Or I'm just trying to. I don't even think that's really a good. But the top 2-3 studs, what's it? Giannis, Morant, Tatum, Lillard, Embiid. I think I'd probably go Giannis, Lillard, then Tatum if I had to rank them myself. But yeah, the guys who get bumped,
too.
That's what you would do as well.
That's my exact same ranking. I got if we're gonna count Paul George as a spend up, he's in that group as well for me. But though in terms of those three, that's how I'd rank them exactly, and those would be my preferred 3 spend ups.
Yeah, I have George. Obviously for his tag, he's great. I don't know how much I love him though. Because I do have fears that the Clippers do weird stuff where they'll just rule a guy out. You know what I mean? So that's kind of where I'm seeing Powell project everywhere. So I'm kind of a little hesitant. But I think George is actually a good play regardless. I just have him. You can't really compare them because he's 8-9 and they're all in the 10Ks. But I get what you're saying. For Tatum, when he's out, I think if not when he's out, if he was to be out, a lot of these guys would get bumps. Derek White, Brogdon. I don't know. Are we still worried if Tatum was going to sit? Is he still Q-tagged?
He's upgraded to probable. He had an illness this morning, but participated in shoot-around, was bumped up to probable. The biggest question mark for me that I don't really understand is $6,100 on Fanduel. Derek White currently projecting for 35% ownership on Fanduel. Even the 20% on DraftKings, that feels like way too much for me. I would way rather just make the pivot to Malcolm Brogdon instead. If I really want to play one of these Boston guards. But to me, my favorite tournament play outside here of Jason Tatum on this team is Rob Williams.
Yeah, Robert Williams I definitely think is interesting because he's a big versus Charlotte. You might get Horford out. He'd probably be my second favorite as well. On White, I think that's a good call. Maybe just switch White to Brogdon. Projections say White, but I get the GTO and switching to Brogdon.
Dean's asking in chat, who can we blame for the egregiously low number of likes currently? We got 35, which is still way more than Dean usually has at this point in the show. So let's bump up these like buttons. Let's get it up to at least 50 here. But Dean's usually still in the teens until we get to about 6 o'clock Eastern here. So he's I don't like this trolling I'm seeing in chat, Dean. That's my job. You can't just take my job as well. I'm busy taking your job. Get out of here, man. But let's take this.
Tell that Dean guy to go away. Who is this?
If you're able to chat, you should be able to host, Dean.
Who is this Dean guy?
This is unbelievable. But let's make the pivot over to
theoretically he should be able to host.
Exactly. If his internet is good enough to chat, his internet is good enough to host. The next game here, Utah and Toronto. This is one of the most interesting games on the slate to me. From the Toronto side of things, Jakob Poeltl is expected to make his debut today for the Toronto Raptors. And so with that, I don't have a ton of interest in this team. Somebody like a Boucher or an Achua, yeah, maybe I was going to get there earlier if Poeltl was going to be out. But with him in, I don't really want to get to either of these guys. The rest of these Raps are priced up. They're probably going to be losing 1 or 2 minutes. Siakam is still 9K on FanDuel, and so I do think that is a tempting price tag. But these Raptors are going to not have a lot of interest for me just because of the amount of healthy bodies they have.
Yeah, I don't really have much interest in any of these Raptors outside of really Van Fleet. I think you could get, if you got one on your teams, I think it makes sense. Obviously a good spot for Siakam. Trent Barnes, the starters. Obviously, if Poeltl was in, you're not playing Achua, but it'd probably be at most one. I want to look at Van Fleet quick because I want to see where someone's bringing him up to me. And
I did see a very interesting stat in regards to the Raptors' defense about when they have a natural center on the court. And the only example they had from that this year was Christian Coloco. When Christian Koloko was on the court, they had a 104 defensive rating, one of the better defensive ratings in the NBA. And with him off the court this year, which is the majority of minutes, they had like a 117 defensive rating, one of the worst in the year. So with Poeltl in this lineup, it should heavily improve this defense. But it's really still Siakam and Van Vliet on this Toronto side. And where I have a lot of interest is on this Utah side of the game.
Yeah, I'd rank him Van Vliet and Siakam on Toronto, and we can hop into Utah.
And like somebody's mentioning in chat that teams do score a lot of points on Utah. It's true, and they have almost a 119 total. They are going to score a lot of points. It's just these guys are kind of all priced appropriately between Siakam and Van Vliet and Barnes and Trent and Poeltl and Boucher and Achua. They're all probably going to 4 or 5x, and that's just probably not going to do it on this 11-game slate. But on the Utah side of things, Colin Sexton only getting 30% ownership seems a little crazy to me. I'm getting 80% Colin Sexton today.
I'm getting 100% Colin Sexton.
Yeah, like I'm worried that I don't have enough when I'm getting 80% Colin Sexton today, so I might take your advice here and just hit the lock button, because even if Jordan Clarkson plays, Colin Sexton is one of the best plays on the slate. Now, if Jordan Clarkson does not play, Colin Sexton is the very best play on the slate. We may know that news before lock. We may not. This game is at 7:30. Sorry. And with that being said, like I think Colin Sexton is just the best value in comparison to his percentage of ownership on the slate at this point. And then in addition to that, somebody that I bumped up their projection because I think we are under on minutes today is Talen Horton-Tucker. I'm getting about 40% or 30 to 40% Talen Horton-Tucker today. He played 28 minutes last game with no Mike Conley. 24 minutes last game with no Mike Conley. And he was the point guard whenever Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton were not on the court. And so with him getting that many ball handling duties, he just becomes my favorite low-owned tournament value play on the slate. Obviously, his ownership will go up if Jordan Clarkson is out, but then that just makes me like him even more because his projection is going to bump up more as well. So Talen Horton-Tucker today is one of my favorite tournament values on the slate because I think he's good for 25 to 30 fantasy points if Clarkson's in, and if Clarkson's out, I think he could be a 10 to 12, 13x kind of play today.
Yeah, there's actually another guy liking this team as well, but the Taylor Horton-Tucker thing is important to like really hit on because in tournaments, you have Stanley Johnson there playing shooting guard and small forward. He's going to be super chalk relative to Tucker. So if you wait on that news, you have like that pivot if Clarkson is out, and you have it anyways because THT's kind of grading out pretty well. Just have to worry about Horton-Tucker because you try to make it happen all the time around the industry and just doesn't always come to fruition. But it's a different situation now in Utah, so we're gambling a lot tonight. So I don't mind gambling on some THT exposure. The other guy I liked, and it was Walker Kessler at 5'7". So everyone's playing Norman Powell at 5'7". Walker Kessler is like an extremely good play today, and he's not going to be played. He's an elite play, in my opinion. I really like Kessler. You mentioned, what'd you say about the defenses exactly? What was the situation with defense?
So Toronto should be now this is their very first game with a new player. However, this player has played with OG and Van Vliet and Siakam before. He was a Raptors first round pick like 5 years ago. And so Poeltl should be used to these guys in this defense. But assuming that he is, when they had Christian Koloko on the court this year, starting, which is a decent enough sample size because he started a decent amount of games, the Raptors had a 104 defensive rating, one of the better defensive teams in the league. And when Christian Koloko was off the court this year, when they have no legitimate center on the court, they have a 117 defensive rating. So the Raptors should be a lot better defensively tonight, playing a little bit slower tonight than they have been throughout the season.
Is Poeltl in or out? Do we know?
He is available to play. It hasn't said if he is starting, but Poeltl's available to play.
So should I be worried more about Kessler in that scenario? Or
for Kessler,
for that matter?
It makes me want to like load up on 3 or 4 or 5, like Spurs and all of my, or Jazz and all of my lineups less. but they are still so heavily undermanned today, even if Colin Sexton, especially if Jordan Clarkson is out, that I don't really care. They could score 105 points and still have 3 to 4 players being optimal if they're all playing heavy minutes. So the rule I have right now is I want at least one to two of Sexton and Horton Tucker in every single one of my lineups. And then I do have a max one rule set on Olenek, Kessler, and Markkanen, but I'm trying to get 10 to 20% of each of those three.
I think Kessler is like a phenomenal play.
I like him a lot as well. He's the one of those three that I'm getting to the most of. He is my third highest owned Jazz today.
Yeah, I like that tag at 5.7 for Kessler.
And just like he's got a low floor in like on one of these random games that he plays low minutes, but I actually think Pirtle being in helps Kessler because that should solidify his minutes with them needing to have a legit 5 out there because he's kind of the only one who can. He's their only legit 5, right? And so
if you were picking a fade of one of Collins or Mark Williams, for example, would you consider who would be your favorite pivot of these two? Ayton or Kessler? I know they're different prices, but I'm just wondering in terms of construction, like what your thought process would be.
I would probably go with Kessler today because of the other spend ups that I like on this slate. I wouldn't want to risk not getting Damian Lillard, Giannis, or Tatum, maybe Paul George in there. I wouldn't want to risk not having enough salary for that. So then I'd go with Kessler over Ayton.
Interesting. Yeah, I really like the Kessler call.
Going over to the next game, we got about 35 minutes until the crunch time guys join us. Make sure you hit that like button. I always want to get to at least 100 likes before we get the crunch time guys in here. Look, J3 in chat saying the people want Dean. I know the people want Dean. We all want Dean. We love Dean. But Dean's on vacation. He needs a nice rest. He's got his feet up. He's in the tub right now.
Dean's taking on heavy usage lately.
Dean has been taking on big time usage lately. He's an Iron Man type player in the industry, 5 days a week doing GrindersLive. Dean is currently in the bathtub with his feet up, with a little TV tray on top of the tub, with his laptop on top of that, watching us with a nice glass of white wine
and a little rubber ducky floating around.
Little rubber ducky floating around. He's got the bath bombs. He's got the bubbles. It's fantastic. Let's hit the like button for Dean. If you want Dean to come back, hit the like button. If you want me to stay, still hit the like button. It's not going to matter. Dean's coming back, but let's hit the like button anyways. Now, let's go to the next game on the slate, Houston and Miami. Houston is getting some of their players that they acquired via trade in this week, like a Frank Kaminsky, going up against this Miami team, 103 total. Look, if you land on Şengün or Jalen Green in 150 max scenarios, I think that's okay. But this is one of the easiest cross-off teams to me on the slate in Houston.
Yeah, I think Jalen Green and Şengün are fine. Tari Eason, someone mentioned him in the chat as a value. There's a ton of value on the slate, but I do like Eason a little bit. If he starts, he's going to make my pool. I think you'd make the same case for Jae'Sean Tate. Eric Gordon someone's going to see those Gordon minutes, right? We would imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, if that is Terry Eason and he pops into the starting lineup, I like him, but they typically play him more as a 4 than a 3.
So what about Tate at 3.8? That would be the one that.
I just kind of feel like we're going to get a slew of guys playing 25 to 30 minutes, and none of them are going to be all that interesting. Like, if Eason or Tate get 24, they become interesting value plays. But I don't know how much more than that they're going to get. Like, we're currently projecting the starting lineup to be Knicks, Smith Jr., Martin, Şengün, and Green. Now, if that happens to be Eason in the starting lineup instead of Knicks, or if that happens to be Jae'Sean Tate in the starting lineup instead of Knicks, I do think those guys would be in play. But coming off the bench, like, these guys still have 12, 13 guys who could see the floor today.
Yeah, I feel similar. Like, Tate and Smith and Jabari, Tate Smith and Eason are guys like even playing large field tournaments. I think my favorite would be Jabari. But I don't want to get to too many of these guys.
The one thing I will say about Eason, if he doesn't start today, which again we're not expecting, but if there's no Eason today in the starting lineup, this is a 12-point total. I do think he could get some blowout run. If he gets some blowout run, he could kind of explode here. So thinking of it in that lens, I think he is somebody that you can maybe keep in the pool. Maybe I'll add him to my 150 max pool, but he wasn't someone I was originally considering here. I still just think Houston has too many bodies going up against this Miami team. That's a really strong defensive team. On the Miami side, obviously they have a great matchup against Houston. However, like we mentioned already, it's a 12-point spread. This whole starting lineup, I'm kind of okay with landing on as a last piece. Adebayo, Jimmy Butler, Tyler Herro, Caleb Martin, Gabe Vincent. But they're not heavy targets for me.
Yeah, I think my favorite would be Herro. Butler, probably right there as well. But yeah, they're probably last guys in terms of like how I'm building in my player pool currently. I might even do like max one.
Yeah, I got max one Heat player in my lineup today as well. Maybe one of them has a really big day as they blow out Houston here, but they got so many bodies and it's a big spread that I don't really want to get to too many Miami players here. Jimmy Butler isn't that same insane amount of value that he was before. Jakob Poeltl will play off the bench in his Raptors season debut today. I think that just still gives me a little bit more interest in the Siakams and the Van Vliets than I would have had before. But I definitely think it still means you're not playing Boucher, you're not playing Achua today because they're going to be limited with Poeltl popping in there. Let's go over to Minnesota and Memphis. Minnesota is expected to get Mike Conley available for this one. We don't know if he's going to be starting, but they're expected to get him back. Not get him back and for the first time. Rudy Gobert is listed as questionable. Kyle Anderson is listed as questionable. They just acquired Nickeil Alexander-Walker via trade as well, and he's expected to be available for this one. If Gobert and Anderson are in, I don't think I have any interest in anybody on this team not named Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards, I will still have lots of interest in, but Edwards is, as it stands, the only one who interests me. And then if we get Gobert out and if we get Kyle Anderson out, that's when I'll start looking at some of this value as well, highlighted by Naz Reid.
Yeah, so I feel the same way. Earlier in the day, like when we didn't have Conley news, I wasn't on pretty much. I was thinking like maybe I could get Noel late, but then I still had to worry about because Rivers was back if Rivers would start, and then it'd be Kyle Anderson and Edwards. So it was just like a play that I ixnayed. Yeah, not really much outside of Anthony Edwards for me if all these guys are in.
I do think Anthony Edwards is a very strong tournament play. Take out that usage of D'Angelo Russell, but outside of him, I'm not looking to get to anyone today unless we get Anderson and Rudy Gobert out. It would make Naz Reid a very strong play today, especially with his power forward eligibility.
Edwards is 10K. Like, yeah, he's shooting guard, small forward. A lot of ownership's going to come in there in terms of chalk. But like, he's not really in the same range for me as a lot of these. Like Lillard's table, they're also $1,000 more. So
the one thing I will say is where Anthony Edwards is $9,100 on Fanduel, I think that's one of the first plays in your cash game lineups today.
Yeah, that makes sense on FD.
Let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies opposing the Minnesota Timberwolves here today. John Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane are always high ceiling plays that are in play for tournaments. I like John Morant quite a bit today for tournaments. He's somebody that I'm looking to get overweight on his percentage of ownership today, coming in sub 10% on both sides. I'm not trying to target him at a near 50% range like I will be Damian Lillard today, but I do still want to get overweight on John Morant in tournaments, maybe with a sprinkle of Jaren Jackson Jr. and Desmond Bane, but nobody else for me today. How about you?
Yeah, so it would just be Morant for me. If you had to rank them, how would you rank Morant, Tatum, and Lillard?
I would probably go
Giannis. I know Giannis is your favorite.
Actually, Giannis, I think, falls second behind Lillard to me. Lillard's number one for me. And then in the Tatum and Morant range, I would go Tatum 2, Morant 3.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I would go Giannis 1, Lillard 2, Morant 3, and Tatum 4.
But I do agree that those are probably the top 4 spend ups on the slate today. I was lower on John Morant. And then full disclosure, I saw that little green tag, and that green tag means Squirrel Patrol is on John Morant today. And if Squirrel Patrol is on somebody, guess what? So am I. And so I boosted up the amount of John Morant I wanted to get to today to make sure I got over that 8% projection on DraftKings, 6% projection on FanDuel today. Under 30 minutes until the crunch time crew comes in here. We still have the entire 10 p.m. slate of games to go with 4 more remaining. Hit that like button for us. We got almost 300 people watching. Let's get this up over 100 likes before the crunch time crew gets here today. We do have a question in the YouTube chat. Who are the top 3 spend ups tonight? We just kind of ranked them. For me, it's Lillard 1, Giannis 2, Tatum 3. For Bobby, it was Giannis 1, Lillard 2, Morant 3. And then we did have a question in the Discord that I wanted to make sure we touch on as well here. I just lost it on my phone, trying to make sure I get it. On a FanDuel single entry, how many studs would you be looking to play today, or would you be looking to roll out a balanced build? So for me on FanDuel today, it's a little bit different because of how some of these guys are priced. We don't have as many strong 3K plays that we do on DraftKings, and we also have some missed prices in the mid-tier. And so for me, the stud I'd want to make sure I get to is the 10.4K Damian Lillard. And then the next 2 targets I'd want to make sure I have today are Paul George and Anthony Edwards. $8,200 for Paul George, $9,100 for Anthony Edwards. Those guys are just way too cheap. And so Lillard, Paul George, and Anthony Edwards would be the 3 guys that I'd be looking to start my lineup with.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Don't play a lot of FanDuel, so I really don't have too much input. But yeah, it does seem like Lillard would be the guy that I'd want to start with, looking at the stuff I'm looking at.
This season, I'm always more willing to go balance build on FanDuel just because they're way quicker than DraftKings is at pricing up their minimum price guys. And so not only does DraftKings have the lower pricing tier at going the minimum price going all the way down to 3K, but they're slower at pricing those guys up. FanDuel's quicker at it. Where FanDuel,
I wish I could play on FanDuel. They won't bump my limit. Like I can't get in touch with a rep for years. Like it's so crazy.
Yeah, we gotta make sure to get those type of comments out now before the crunch time crew comes in for the FanDuel sponsored show. But that's all right. It's GrindersLive's not. We got our scores and odds plugged in. That's all we need. Yeah, I've been having a few troubles over there, and that's why it's tougher this year. FanDuel is tougher this year. They have been much better on their pricing. There's always just some random guys in the mid-tier, though, that don't get up high enough. It's been Zach LaVine all season, and right now it's Paul George and Anthony Edwards. So those are the 2 I'd really want to make sure I target. Let's start talking about these 10 p.m. games here. First one, Cleveland and the New Orleans Pelicans. Cleveland's got a 112.5 total here with everybody healthy.
Yeah, there's no... I don't know. You can make a case for... As last guys in, they're fine, but I'm not really getting it from these guys.
Allen, Mobley, Garland, and Mitchell. If they're your last piece, those are all fine last pieces, especially if you got a couple New Orleans guys on your team, but not going to be a very big Cleveland Cavalier heavy day for me today. The New Orleans side of things is where I am more likely to get to a couple of these players. CJ McCollum, I think he's fine for tournaments as a last piece, similar to these Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland types. But Brandon Ingram, I still think is quite underpriced at $7,600 on DraftKings. I like him quite a bit for tournaments today. $7,800 on FanDuel, I think that's fine. Where McCollum is $7,500 on FanDuel, I think that's fine as well. But believe it or not, I think my favorite play for tournaments on this New Orleans team today is going to be Jonas Valanciunas. He has a high ceiling whenever he gets minutes. This Cleveland team, yes, is very good defensively, especially inside. But they got one of Evan Mobley and Jared Allen on the court basically at all times. They usually run two bigs out there. This screams Jonas Valanciunas getting over 30 minutes to me. And with his price tag being sub 6K on both sites, he's somebody that I really, or I guess 6'1" on Fanduel, 5'9" on DraftKings. He's somebody I like quite a bit for tournaments today, and he'll get literally no ownership.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like Valanciunas as well. He'd probably be my favorite tournament play for the exact reasons that you kind of gave. Brandon Ingram, like you said, 7'6" is too cheap. The rest of these guys on New Orleans, I want no part of.
Yeah, same page with me today. Next
Horford is
game,
out.
Al Horford is out, so that bumps up guys like Hauser and Grant Williams. It bumps up Jason Tatum. It improves the assist upside for guys like Malcolm Brogdon and Derek White, and it makes Robert Williams a really good play. We also just got Jordan Clarkson illness ruled out, something I was hoping we would get after lock, but now that we know that now, Colin Sexton is getting the lock button for me tonight.
He was already getting the lock button for me, so I have nothing to change.
Exactly. Nothing to change, but it would have been nice to get that one after lock here. Let's talk about OKC and Portland, a much more interesting game here for tournaments. On the OKC, this is a 118.5 total for OKC, 121 for Portland. Huge total, close spread. On the OKC side of things, if Luguentz Dort plays, the Jalen with an E, Josh Giddey, SGA, I have a lot less interest in these guys because like SGA's usage drops like 8 percentage points when Luguentz Dort is on the court. And so I would have a lot less interest there. But I do think that you brought up a great point here. We got a minutes projection wrong on one of these players, especially considering Mike Muscala is out the door. Jeremiah Robinson Earl still gone. Dario Saric not available to make his Thunder debut. Talk to me about one of the guys that you think is probably one of the better value plays on this slate.
Yeah, so Jalen Williams played 30 minutes. Jalen with a Y Williams played 30 minutes previous game at the center position. Like I just think projections are a little backed up. I think he plays tonight. He starts 30 minutes. I think he's the guy that can win you a large field tournament play at 3-2. He's the guy. I'm calling my shot with Jalen Williams. I think he's gonna be on the winner tonight. If he gets 30 minutes, what is he fantasy point per minute? Like he's strong, right? I would imagine.
Yeah, he is a strong fantasy point per minute producer. I don't have the court IQ up here in front of me, but when I bump him up to a 30-minute projection, his fantasy point projection goes up to about 28. So I'd have to guess it's about 0.9, 0.89.
Yeah, I really like Jalen Williams. I think in larger field stuff, you can make a case. I don't know if Sarge has hit player pools yet, but
he is not available tonight.
He's not available. Yeah, so I really like Jalen Williams. I'm gonna bump that.
I'm with you. I put him in the projections for 30 minutes, and I'm going to try and get at least 20% of him today because I think he's a very strong tournament play. I love that call.
I kind of want to go like super heavy on Jalen Williams just because of how the slate itself kind of, everyone's going to be locking Collins, then Mark Williams. But then there's also values at the center position like later on too, right? Like you can play one of these Clippers guys, Covington, or who's the other one, Batum at center. They're 3K, projecting well. I don't know. I really like backloading and getting some Jalen Williams and larger field stuff.
If he had that power forward eligibility, I'd be a lot more interested. There's just so many centers, not only from a value perspective, but Joel Embiid, Robert Williams, Walker Kessler, DeAndre Ayton, so many other centers I want to get to today. So that's kind of the one thing that is keeping me away from getting like a 50%. But I love the idea of getting like the 20-ish for tournaments. I think you had a phenomenal call on that one. Let's look at the Portland side of things. 121 total. Highest total on the slate, if I am not mistaken here. What is my Milwaukee? Yeah, no, Milwaukee's only at 114. So Portland, 121.5, highest total on the slate. Damian Lillard is my personal favorite spend up on the slate here. Without Yusuf Nurkic and Josh Hart on the court this year, how many points do you think Damian Lillard averages per 36 minutes? Not
it's
fantasy
probably
points,
very strong because he's projecting very well for me, but I think you're going to give me the answer.
39 real life points per 36 minutes with Josh Hart and Yusuf Nurkic off the court. So unless he's shooting like absolute garbage and he's playing against in a fast-paced matchup without a lot of defense against OKC, I just love Damian Lillard today. In the lineups, I'm not getting Lillard. I love the idea of getting Simons and then sprinkle Jeremy Grant, strong tournament play. And then I'll have some sprinkles of the Drew Eubanks, Trenton Watford, Nasir Little, but especially Watford and Eubanks, very little because of how much extra value we have today.
Yeah, it's Lillard for me. I get like Nas Little play. It's just he's 3K. I think the last time he played 24 minutes and got 17 points when he started. So there's just better values, I think, overall. But yeah, Lillard, Simons, you can make a case for Grant. Lillard would definitely be my favorite. I'm not on Eubanks. I know I have him. I think that was from earlier in the morning. I tagged him. I'm going to get off of him. It's Little. Let me change that up. I'm not really interested in Eubanks.
That's no problem at all here. I'm just making a couple lineup or player pool adjustments here as we go, making sure I have Jordan Clarkson out of my pool here, bump up the projections for Sexton and Talen Horton-Tucker even more. Make sure we get 100% of Sexton, at least 50% Talen Horton-Tucker. Damian Lillard is my favorite guy to spend up for tournaments. I love the Jalen Williams run back call, Jalen with an I. This is one of the better game stack spots on the slate here, I think. Next game, Dallas and Sacramento. Luka Doncic is still not going to play in this one. Somebody like a Josh Green, I don't mind as a last piece. Kyrie Irving, I want to keep in my player pool just in case he has a big explosion game. But I think the most interesting one for tournaments is Christian Wood. No one's going to play Christian Wood because he's probably going to play 20 minutes again. The trade deadline has passed. He's 2 games off of his injury. This game's not till 10 p.m. What if he starts tonight? What if Christian Wood starts and plays 36 minutes? If he does, he'd be one of the better projected plays on the slate. So he's somebody that I want to make sure I get in 5 to 10% of my lineups today, MMEing, because if he plays 20 minutes again, he's going to suck. But if he happens to get 30 plus minutes, he's going to be a very strong play going up against the Sacramento team. Pace up spot, not a great defense. I really like the idea of sprinkling him in for tournaments today.
Yeah, I'm adding him as we speak. I didn't do the deep dive on him this morning. I did think he was fine at 8-2. Would prefer, obviously having some Kyrie because I just don't know if I'm going to get there. But, yeah, he could have the explosion game. But Wood definitely goes against, these double center construct. Well, it doesn't go against – he goes against the regular double center construction that we're going to see. So I think that's super fine.
I love that throughout this show we've been on the same page with slight adjustments about so many different things. And then we keep taking turns every couple games being like, ooh, this is a good tournament play. Add him to the player pool. And we're like, oh, yeah, I didn't have him. I'll add him in. And then the other one does it a couple games later.
We got did you get we're not supposed to be building on shows, though. That's I don't know if you saw that in chat.
Yeah. I don't. I'm just. I keep
I am too. I am too. I'm not. I am too. I'm with you. I'm doing the same.
Got to keep the player pool built, but not the actual lineups themselves here. But I do think on this one, on a Grinders Live style show, I really like getting to the behind the scenes of what are the rules you're setting today.
I think that's the biggest thing. I wish me and Dean were doing more of that. He pushes me into it, but I'm just usually not. I don't know. I feel like I'm definitely more ready to go tonight. So
I love it. I love it.
On this slate.
It's fun. We got to embrace it. I think one of the reasons why I like this so much is I'm not the type of guy who is plugging in my own numbers into the spreadsheets, right? We got an amazing projections team here at RotoGrinders. Some people make their own models. For me, it's just like I know who is going everywhere, and I have a pretty good idea in my head of like, okay, I think this guy's going to get 30 minutes, so I'm going to bump this up on the fly and just do that from a hand-built perspective, bump those guys up to minutes or bump them down minutes based on the news that we hear. And that's why I love this style of night when we have so many chaotic things going on, players being ruled in, making team debuts for their teams, getting ruled out with illnesses. To me, that's where there's some of the most edges still in NBA DFS, when everybody still has these strong projection systems. On the Sacramento side of thing, 119 total is a very big total because Sacramento plays at a fast pace here. But this Dallas team, strong defense, slow pace team. Will they be as strong of a defense without guys like Dorian Finney-Smith out here and with the addition of Kyrie Irving? We'll see. We don't really know yet. But as things stand, Sacramento was a high total, but still not too many players I want to get to today. It's just going to be Sabonis, Fox, and Malik Monk as sprinkles, and that's about it.
Yeah, someone said just don't drool. Did I drool? Basically, yeah, I'm with you. Not too much Sabonis, not too much Fox. But yeah, they're fine with the total. They're just not projecting well enough for me.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at too here. Like, due to their ceilings, I want to be keeping them in the pool, but I'm going to get to max one Sacramento player today, and it's only going to be if the optimizer just plops one in for me. Final game of the slate. If you have any questions, make sure you get them in here because we still got about 10 minutes here before the crunch time crew comes in, so we do still have time for questions. But this game is one of the most exciting games on the slate as well in the late night hammer. This 10:30 game, Milwaukee at LA Clippers, 1-point spread. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 12-5, very expensive, but we have the value. He's coming in at 20% owned right now. This is a guy I'm wanting to get at least 30% of today. And without Chris Middleton, I even think Jrue Holiday has a nice price tag. I don't mind getting there. And Brook Lopez is somebody I don't mind landing on either. How about you?
Yeah, currently I hit the lock button on Giannis. I think Drew's definitely in play. I think this is just a really elite spot for Giannis overall. And then, yeah, on the other side, I think some of these Clippers, like you hit on at the top of the show, Paul George, Norm Powell, Batum and Covington, I think they're in play as run backs, cheap values. That's pretty much kind of where I'm going.
Jason Tatum officially available to play. As you say, you're going to be locking in Giannis. I think this is a good time for this question in the YouTube here. In your opinion, who are the lock buttons tonight? I think the only player I'll be having 100% of is going to be Colin Sexton. I'll probably be getting close to 50% of Mark Williams, Talen Horton-Tucker, Damian Lillard, Giannis Antetokounmpo. But I think the only one I'm going to be getting 100% of today is going to be Colin Sexton for me. How about you? Who are going to be the players that you are getting in all of your lineups tonight?
I definitely Sexton and Giannis. Those would be the two currently.
What do you think about the ancillary pieces of Milwaukee, Jrue Holiday, Brook Lopez, or even guys like Grayson Allen and Pat Connaughton who should pick up some extra minutes today without Chris Middleton? Do you feel any need to go there, or do we just have too much value on this?
No, we have way too much value. I don't even want to think about those guys when they are value plays. So. Should I be more? Should I like them more? I don't know.
No, I don't like them either. But Jrue Holiday is somebody that I'm looking to get to about 10%.
Jrue is fine. Yeah, definitely.
On the LA Clippers side of things, we talked about Paul George quite a bit throughout the show, especially on FanDuel, where he's $8,200. That's just way too cheap. Somebody was asking in chat, isn't PG on a minutes limit, or am I crazy? I think the minutes limit is all done. We're projecting him for 35 minutes right now. And so I'm all aboard the Paul George train today on both of these sites. The only way I would potentially worry about this, and this is one of my favorite bets on the slate, is betting on Milwaukee against the Clippers here. Clippers are undermanned. There's no Kawhi Leonard. There's no reason they should only be favored by 1 point here on the Milwaukee side. So Milwaukee, I like on a betting standpoint quite a bit.
Can we step in and rank the Spurs for Marwan Don Yeezy? It's good friend at
100%. Let's finish going through the Clippers here quick, and then we'll go back to the Spurs side of things, since we do still have a little bit of time before the crunch time group comes in. George, I think, is one of the better plays on the slate. Norman Powell is too cheap for the role he's getting today. He's a strong play. And then for tournaments today, I don't mind getting to Zubats, Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann. I even think it's somewhat interesting, including a guy like Robert Covington in the pool today, just based on he has a ceiling. You know what I mean? Like, now that we have the amount of value that we have popped up, I don't think you need to get there. But if he was a guy that played 25 minutes today on a smaller slate, I think he's somebody that you could have got to in tournaments. But now that we've had this amount of value open up, I actually think I'm going to X out the Batums, the Covingtons out of my pool completely.
Do you have any worries with Zubac and not having Brook Lopez that they go small?
They do have Brook Lopez, though.
They do have Brook Lopez?
Sorry. Yeah, Brook Lopez is in. So he's going to be good there. And especially with a guy like Giannis out there, I think they'll want Zubac's size inside.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Here. So I do like him for tournaments today. His props are one of my favorites on the slate. I believe he's got like a 10.5 points prop, a 9 rebounds prop. I love his points and rebounds props today. Let's make the pivot back to the San Antonio Spurs. For those who came in late here, make sure you're hitting the like button for us. We got the crunch time guys popping in here in a couple minutes. Almost 400 people watching. Let's get this up over at least 100 likes here before the crunch time crew comes in. Take your mouse, bring it over, click the like button. If you're watching on your phone, click hide chat, hit the light, bring the chat back up. When there's 400 people watching, we should be able to at least get $200 easy. What do I got to do? Do I got to take off my clothes? Does Bobby got to take off his clothes?
I'm not taking off my clothes on the show. You can take them off, but
look, you see that picture frame behind Bobby there that says millionaire maker? When you win $1 million, you just immediately stop caring what others think of you, and you become willing to take your clothes off. So if we get 200 likes before the crunch time guys come here, Bobby probably will end up taking off his clothes. But
Candace is not happy. She said bye.
Candace says bye. So I take it back, Candace. If we get 200 likes, Bobby will not take his clothes off, and that'll be the better way.
My clothes are staying on. Yeah, so we got to rank these Spurs. Collins would be my favorite. I think he's easily the best value. Then I'm going to go a little different. I'm going to go Blake Wesley at 3,500. I like that tag on him. Stanley Johnson. I'm on Fanduel. What am I doing? Zach Collins, Stanley Johnson would be 2, Blake Wesley would be 3, and Roby would be 4 for me. I was looking at Fanduel, my Fanduel stuff.
That is the
like 7 months.
Exact same order that I have. For tournaments, Collins is the best play, but Collins' ownership to me, I think, is way too high. So if he's still coming in close to 60% in your lock, that is one of my favorite places to get underweight in tournaments. But in terms of how much I'll have of each of them, it'll rank Collins, Johnson, Wesley, Roby, and then small sprinkles of Graham, Bates, Diop, and Malachi Branham today. I don't really feel the need to play somebody like Doug McDermott in this one. He just never really plays big minutes. I will say, though, the Spurs is not my favorite place for value on this slate. It's going to be the Utah Jazz. Like we talked about earlier, it's lock button season for Colin Sexton, and I think I want to get at least 50% of Taylor Horton-Tucker as well.
Yeah, I think it's lock button season for Sexton also. I want to just Mark Williams. How many minutes do we think he's going to play now that he's starting?
I'll refresh here, see if we got a minutes update. In the meantime, I'll ask another question here from YouTube. Is Noel still in play with Mike Conley playing tonight? I think so. The answer is no, because Austin Rivers is also back.
He could end up starting and start alongside Conley and do well, but it's just tough with all the value that we have to kind of wait for that.
Yeah, that is
And I still think Conley takes something away from him, right?
Yeah, that's my thought process here as well. We just have too much other value that I don't think you need to go there tonight. Conley must have pissed somebody off to get traded to Minnesota. I mean, he was on Utah before, which, like, where would you really rather play here, Minnesota or Utah? It's not like it's all that big of a upgrade. Do you build your single entry lineups like your cash lineups, or do you switch it up a little? For me personally, I try and make if I'm doing a single entry tournament, I'll use the projections. Like I don't necessarily think of it like this is cash versus this is not cash, but I will usually try and find one or two ways to get a little bit different. But I'll still lean on the projections. Like if I was playing a single entry lineup on FanDuel today, my priority would still be Damian Lillard, Anthony Edwards, as well as Paul George. Maybe I fade somebody like Zach Collins at 60% ownership if I'm running a single entry tournament. But I usually typically just try and find one or two ways to get different. I don't get all too crazy in single entry. How about you?
Yeah, it's like a cash game hybrid for me. Kind of how I look at it in single entry. It depends on the field size too, right? Like,
can you play Devontae Graham? Or sorry, not Devontae Graham.
Oh, was I on mute? Was I muted?
No, you're good. You're good.
All right.
I was just making the pivot to the next question here because we're going to have the crunch time guys come in any minute. Can you play Colin Sexton and Talen Horton-Tucker in the same lineup? To me, the answer is heck yes.
Yeah, I think you can do that. Yep.
I'll have 100% Sexton and at least 50% Horton-Tucker, so about half of my lineups will have both of them there. Devontae Graham debut on San Antonio feels like a lock. I don't know about that. If he's in the starting lineup, I'll definitely have a lot of interest in Devontae Graham today. But if he's coming off the bench, I definitely don't think he's a lock because, I mean, in theory, he could play 0 minutes.
Yeah, if he's coming off the bench, I don't have a ton of interest. If he was starting, I would have interest.
At 3K, if he's starting, I'll definitely want to get to quite a bit of him. But if he is coming off the bench in this one, like 5 to 10% max of Devontae Graham, if he gets hot, yeah, he has a ceiling, but we really don't know how many minutes he's going to be playing today in his debut. So not somebody I'm trying to get to a lot of today if we get all those guys healthy here. Too much talk about stripping in the chats. I apologize. I'll use something else to try and boost up the likes in the future. I was trying to get creative. I was trying to get new. But now we're talking about people and their favorite strip clubs. So thank you, Roth. Thank you for saving me to take the conversation to something other than strip clubs.
Spearmint Rhino? Oh, we're not going to talk about that? I'm sorry.
I've enjoyed a night or two of the Spearmint Rhino.
Sorry, TJ. I could have bailed you out and I just dove us right back in.
How you guys doing tonight? It's good to see you guys getting the transition 2 days in the row to you here to the Crunch Time crew, and had some FanDuel Friday with Dre earlier. So nice to see some friendly faces.
Likewise here. Are you sliding over with us into Crunch Time or no? Not this time.
No, not this time. Since we got you got Dre, you got Ameansy. I'm taking a break to build my lineups here. I'm making 361 lineups on DraftKings today.
Whew. I mean, I'm just impressed. I don't know what to say. I'm just amazed that is even doable. So kudos to you, sir.
Well, I guess on behalf of myself and Bobby, let's get out of here. Good luck, guys.
Have a good day, guys.
All right, later, guys.
Yeah, have a good weekend.
We'll work on that, like the out and the in. We'll work on that. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to it. It's officially crunch time. And yes, starting on the button here, it is 6:20 Eastern, 5:20 in the good time. That's Central Time. Joined by two of the sharpest minds in the biz. It's one, Mr. Andy Means. What up, Means?
Feeling good, man. Today wasn't too awful as far as news. A lot of the news has come in already. Feel good about the plays. Feel good about the cheap plays. Feel good about the expensive plays. Feel good that I get to hang out with you tomorrow. So, I feel great.
I'm pretty stoked about that as well. The last time you were feeling pretty good about a slate, I believe, was 2 little days ago, and it was a print factory in here. Everybody was just saying, like, Meansy's. I think someone said, like, I owe Meansy my life, or something a little over the top. But
we've had a good week, Roth. You killed Monday. I think got some other people killed Monday, and you were telling me some people were talking last night on the show that in the chat that they did it on Wednesday. So let's try to keep it going, man.
That's how I feel. Yeah, I feel like we should close this out on a high note here. It has been a good week, so looking forward to your cash thoughts. And then we got Drizzy Dre in the house as well. Dre, what's happening, man? How are you?
I'm doing pretty good over here. Ready to give some GPP takes. It's a really good slate today. So let's get on some winners.
That's what I like to hear. I love it. We are starting off with our sponsor, FanDuel. This is a FanDuel sponsored show. And while I bring up FanDuel, make sure you're signing up for the FanDuel Sportsbook. If you're in a legal sports betting state, you can take advantage of their just absolutely fantastic bonus offer. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $3K. I will be participating in that in Nashville very, very soon, like tomorrow. I'm going to be the guy finally signing up for the promo I've been talking about, and I'm pretty excited about that. Also, the FanDuel Single Entry Series, sponsored by RotoGrinders, that is back and popping. Reserve your spot in the Friday NBA block contest. Only 5 bones to enter for your chance at $1,000. Just some very good things happening over there on FanDuel, and some very good things happening right here on Crunch Time. Means you want to give us a little rundown?
I can do that. 11 games, so I'm not going to go through everything.
Sure. Yeah,
we've gotten we've gotten a lot of, like I said, a lot of information on, like, there's some injury stuff we had to go through today, but mainly we were interested in who's going to be available and who's not going to be available for, trade acquisitions and stuff. So we've gotten a lot of that. I'll go through that, the important stuff as we get there, like for the guys I really like. But stuff we're waiting on. Embiid has a Q tag again. Gobert and Slow-Mo have Q tags again for Minnesota. And honestly, that's really it for like big stuff. And then obviously Dort, I forgot Dort's Q. That's not going to matter much from my perspective. But we also want to we also want to get some confirmation on starting lineups. Like the Spurs have 10 guys. I want to know if Blake Wesley's starting or if DeMonte Graham is starting. I'm trying to think if there's any others that like really stand out. Like that's the main one I'm thinking of. Maybe a little bit in Utah, but yeah, we'll want to get confirmation on starting lineups, because I think that's going to move. I think that's going to move stuff more than like in or outs, because there's like not much we're waiting on. So
Gotcha.
That's kind of where my head's at for the next 35 minutes.
Okay, very good. Well, some of that may trickle in as the show goes on, and as it does, of course, we will make some adjustments. But in the meantime, let's walk through a FanDuel cash build. I'm seeing Zach Collins with the rainbow, and like I don't even know who that dude is, and I don't feel great about playing him.
I mean, his price on DK is even it'll really take you aback when you see that one. So the Spurs have 10 guys, but the main thing with him is he's like over a fantasy point per minute, but he's been playing behind Pearl all year, and Pearl got traded. So assuming he's anywhere close to the minutes we have him at, he should be fine. But he's 4K on DK, so like I think he's for sure fadeable at 60% on a 4 games or 11 game slate. Like, come on, like there's a lot of good stuff we're going to talk about. That's cheap. So like, yeah, play him in cash games, and like figure out your risk tolerance for tournaments and what format and how big the tournament is and blah blah blah. But like at 5K, he's fadeable because they have Gorgie Jang, they have Isaiah Roby, they're tanking. Like, you never really trust that situation. Like, it's not like he has to play.
No, and yeah, Pop will do the whole like everybody gets 18 minutes thing. We're like, how did you even do that? Yeah,
he can get away with that when he's trying to get Wembanyama. So all right. So I agree. I said the exact same thing when I was writing him up. I was like, I don't like doing this, but I have to do this because he puts up points. So
yeah, the math checks out. I get it.
Yeah. So actually, like small forward, power forward, and center are probably my favorite plays on the whole slate. So we'll get there in a second. So point guard, cheap stuff. I like Brogdon and Derek White. They're without Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, and Al Horford. So really good mid-tier price tags there. Anthony Simon's right there with him. He's 6'2". So those three guys, all really good plays. And then up top is Dame at 10-4, who's just been on a freaking heater lately. No Nurk. Josh Hart got traded. So those are, two of the starters they've been playing all year. So, yeah, great spend up. I think with how much I like forward, like that's where Giannis would be the guy below Dame as far as like if I'm prioritizing spend ups. And since I like so many other forwards, I think Dame is definitely like one guy you should be getting in cash games. All right. That's enough point guards. And a handful of these guys are going to be at shooting guard as well. All right. Yeah. Sexton. So I'll probably tag him in a second, actually. So the Jazz traded Conley, and then Clarkson just got rolled out. So, like, as far as ball handlers and, like, usage and assist rate, like, it's for sure him in the backcourt, and then it's Markkanen. So, and you'll see his price tag on DK is even crazier. So, on Fanduel, even at 5'2", though, he's, like, a really, really good option. If we see THT enter the starting lineup at 3'8", I think he's a good cheap option. And then Paul George is where we start talking about spin-ups, because I already talked about the two Celtics. Those guys both have shooting guard eligibility if you need it. Paul George at 8'2", no Kawhi. John Wall traded. Kennard traded. Reggie Jackson traded. So they said he was on some weird minutes limit, but then they came out and played him like 34 minutes. I think that's how the timing worked out. So you're not going to be looking for like upper 30s here. So, or at least that's, if you believe the coach speak. So, but 8'2" on FanDuel without those guys is a great price tag. I like him as a spin up tonight as well. I didn't mention him at point guard, just the two Spurs in general, who are kind of more in play on DK, although lesser so than they were about 2 hours ago, is the Blake Wesley, Devontae Graham thing I mentioned. I think one of them will start in the backcourt. I don't know which. So that's one thing we'll be looking at. I don't think it's going to – we have Wesley in there right now. It's not going to move the needle too much if it's Graham, just like they're both fine. They're not priorities. That's enough for shooting guard. I think I talked about everybody. Small forward, a handful of these guys have small forward that I talked about, PG, Taylor Horton-Tucker. And then I talked about liking Giannis up top, and then I also like Markkanen. He's only 7'7", the cheapest he's been since the start of December, I think. So those guys are all really good options. But who I really like here is Jeremy Grant at 6'6". I literally said it on Wednesday that he's had like power forward only all year. And thank you, FanDuel, for watching. I know you sponsor us, you watch, you gave him small forward eligibility. Thank you. It's so huge tonight. I really like him at 6'6". No Nurk, no Hart. So love him. I'm trying to think. I said Giannis. Yeah, so like for me, it's definitely Grant here. And then if you're not playing PG, it's shooting guard, play him at small forward, Markkanen, Giannis, THT. Those are the main options for me. Let's see here. Righty. Power forward, Collins. Dre, mute your mic, man. Collins. Robert Williams with no Horford. I really like him at 6'1". Trying to think if there's anyone else here. Yeah, so it's for sure Collins. Time Lord. I like Grant at small forward. Mention Giannis, mention Markkanen. So trying to think if I can like help prioritize this, because I know these are like some of my favorite options here. I think it would for sure be Robert Williams is who I definitely like here. And then we also want to see like if Roby's in the starting lineup. He's 3'6". He's going to be an interesting cheap option if he's in the starting lineup. But yeah, it's Collins and Time Lord here. Put Grant at small forward, maybe Markkanen, maybe Giannis. And then center, you have Collins with center eligibility. You have Time Lord with center eligibility. Mark Williams, the Dookie, way more affordable on DK, but no Plumlee, and he's getting the starting nod. So this dude is really, really good per minute, like really good. I think he's been in like the 1.2s or 1.3s per minute, and I think he's the stone min on DK, but he's 4.8 on FanDuel, still really good price tag. I don't think you have to play him on FanDuel. I do think you have to play him on DK. Just got news that Embiid's in, so that's good to know. That's another check off of the Q tags we were talking about. So, yeah, at center, I'm trying to think if I can help prioritize this inning. It's not an Embiid slate for me, so I would take that off. you could put Collins here because I talked about a lot of forwards I like. And if you're not doing that, then I'd play either Mark Williams or Robert Williams and maybe Roby if he's starting. But I think that is it for me.
Okay. A couple notes. First, I wish this was Fantasy Draft or whatever site where you could play like 5
centers.
Yeah, it sounds like one of those. 2, I looked up Zach Collins' stats, and I need to pull the Shaq and be like, I owe you an apology. I was unfamiliar with your game, sir.
Yeah, if you're not the top 10, I don't know your name. Is that what he said?
Yeah. But actually, pretty solid. So I now am no longer afraid of playing him. And then third, Matthew in chat says, hey, I was late joining, but I owe Meansy a beer. And Meansy would prefer a stubby, cool. Yeah, Meansy would prefer a 12-pack of those. Just go ahead and mail that to Chicago, the nicest penthouse in the city. That's Means. Okay, the good stuff means for cash here, but we want to talk some tournaments, and in order to do that, we kick it on over to Drizzy Dre. I guess start wherever you want, but there seems to be some chalky plays, and I don't know what we're going to do about it. So walk me through a build, Dre.
Yeah, so FanDuel is going to be pretty much a little different for me, but this like because obviously I'm gonna lock in a few guys on FanDuel here, typically on a slate like this today. It's just hard to get away from some guys, but I do. But I know we obviously have guys like Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon who are gonna be popular because of the Boston situation going on over there. I like Damian Lillard a lot. I think he probably is a must play today for me. So he's someone I think you can avoid and probably have to lock in today. But for tournaments, as well, besides Damian Lillard, I don't mind taking shots on his opposite, on the guy he's going against, like Shai. I think Shai is a good guy, good bring back on that team if you want to do that. Obviously, he's point guard and shooting guard eligible here. Makes a lot of sense. This game's going to be up tempo, and if for them to even just want to stay in the game, Shai has to go off and have a big game here. So I like him a lot. This Boston game actually could be more of a close game too. So LaMelo coming in at 2% ownership. I mean, I get the 9.9 price on him too, and he's close to a guy like John Morant. But LaMelo Ball, he didn't play well against this team the last time. I think that was his first game back from injury. Without really Marcus Smart or them being good defensively as he normally is, LaMelo I think is another high price guard you can definitely go with today as well. I always will have these Cleveland guys in my player pool today. I think they are always great for tournaments. They're especially Donovan Mitchell 8-3 is just too low for him, as well as Garland being 8-2. I think these guys are perfect for tournaments as well. Anthony Simons is also another coming in, actually fairly popular from what I'm seeing here too, but I think another good tournament play as well. And Drew Holiday, 7.8K, I think that's a little bit too cheap for him, or probably at where he should be, a little bit below. But he, to me, is another good point guard, shooting guard play, I think, on this slate. I'm going to move over to shooting guard. I know these Miami guys are not a lot of people are going to be playing a lot of them, but a guy like Tyler Hero going against Houston, he should smash here and have a big game. So I don't mind taking some shots on him. Paul George, just lock him in. 8,200 is too cheap. Like there's no excuse for him to be that cheap here. Everyone's talking about playing a lot of Colin Sexton. I like it, but it's still Toronto. Toronto still plays good defense. I understand the amount of uses he's going to have. It's just, I would be probably at the field, not a little bit under. I understand the price is too cheap, especially on a site like DK where he's going to be 4K, but 5.2 is someone that I could see me fading a little bit here in this spot. I also want to mention, I think we have James Harden, Taylor Horton-Tucker, I think is another guy we should mention, as well as Gabe Vincent here. With the Spurs situation, I'm not trying to, it's hard for me to really try to play anybody on there as far as guard-wise, so I'm going to just stay away from there. But I do like kind of attacking the other side with a guy like Jaden Ivey here or Alec Burks. I think you could roster one of these two guys in your lineups and be fine tonight as well. Moving over to small forward, power forward. I'll combine both of them together because I don't really have a lot of plays from either from the small forward position. But Tatum obviously with Brown, Smart, and I believe and I want to say Al Horford on the court. I think he averages or puts about at least 30 points minimum. So to me, this is a smash spot for him, especially against a fast-paced team like Charlotte. So at 10% ownership, I understand why you want to be over the field on it. I love it today as well. Jimmy Butler, a little bit priced up at 8.8K, but if you want to use him to get different, I'm a big fan of it today as well. Yeah, Meansy, thank you for getting the Jeremy Grant moved over to small forward because the power forward lock was just a little unbearable. But I think he at 6.6K now being able to play the small forward position makes him a huge difference and a big part of tonight's slate where he's in play. Gary Trent, we still are without OG Anunoby, so he's going to have to do some scoring to make this team win, help this team win. So I like Gary Trent in tournaments at 6.1K as well here today. And then I'm going to go over to more so the power forward position, even though some of the guys that said you can use that position as well. Julius Randle, 9.3K coming down a little bit just because their Knicks are getting healthier. I still think, though, this matchup against Philly, he can perform well and shine here. So he's someone I don't mind getting over the field on the tournaments. But if you do, I would run him back with a guy like Joel Embiid, or I didn't mention James Harden, but James Harden is someone else I think you can't possibly play too as well. I also do like Bam Adebayo. He should have a field day here against this front line of Houston. So he's someone I think is in a prime position to smash here. So he's one of my favorite plays here on the slate as well. And Marcus Morris going for the Milwaukee. I'm going against Milwaukee. I think is someone that is we should consider in tournaments today as well. And Giannis don't ever count Giannis out on the slate. I think we learned that the last time they played each other where he was not doing that well, and then the fourth quarter came, he put up like 30-something fantasy points, if not more. So I would never count this man out. I think he's a fantastic play today as good tournament play today as well, to say. Zach Collins, I'm weary of it with the Spurs situation, so I would be under the field. I'm really, really high on Walker Kessler, especially now knowing that we got Jakob Poeltl coming off the bench. So I think that still just creates a smash spot for him. Mark Williams is also a very, very, very strong GPP play. Only coming at 19% for what we have him at, which is surprising. I would play him over Zach Collins in my opinion here today. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I don't mind Sabonis a little bit, but I think he's just winding down a little bit and not playing as on a high level as he was earlier. I think that injury has something to do with it, a little bit that he had on his hand before. But yeah, I don't. And also I don't mind, like I said, Joel Embiid as well.
Okay, very good. I did get a question kind of right when you were kicking things off. It was announced that the Suns are starting Paul, Booker, Okaji, Craig, and Ayton. Any interest in Okogie?
No, I can't. I don't play that guy at all. So I can't. I just don't. So no. Never.
Okay, that's fair. All right. Well, it means let's kick it over to DK. Like I locked in some of the cheap plays like Sexton, Collins, Williams, and now I just have all the money in the world and all the space and all the fun. Like I want to play 100 lineups tonight.
Those are the best nights, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's
really fun to build those. Yeah.
So I guess help me out. I got to figure out where I'm spending up because I got a lot of spending up to do.
Yeah, let's just talk cheap plays real quick, just because I think at these prices, man, it's really, really hard to get away from these guys. So, like, Mark Williams is probably going to have 35 DraftKings points at least tonight. So, like, I honestly like him more than Zach Collins now, just because I think when you look at the scenarios of these teams, Collins is just like a vet at this point on the Spurs. Like, they're not really invested in what he does. Like, they know he's not their future. Like, Mark Williams was a lottery pick for the Hornets, and they just traded Plumlee. Like, this dude's going to get burned. So, like, I feel way better about Williams if you're looking into, like, prioritizing one or the other, because they're both center eligible, and I have them both tagged. So, like, then you're out on centers for the rest of your build. So, but I do like Williams a lot. And then Sexton we already talked about him on FanDuel with no Conley And no, Clarkson, he's just at 4K. It's just like this is the same spot. Well, actually, I don't know. Clarkson might even play that night. I don't remember. And he had like 37 DraftKings points. So like, it's just what you got to do. And then those are my three favorites for sure. And then when we're talking spend ups, I think it's Dame, and then I think it's Giannis. So, yeah, let's go position by position.
Okay, let's do it. And there's a ton of good like mid-level plays too, where if you do this build right with Green, Sexton, Collins, you still have like all the money in the world. You can just plug in a bunch of AK guys and feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. And we'll go through a whole bunch of this stuff. There's a ton of good options you can land on here. So let me see. A lot of this stuff is going to be repeats of what I said over on FanDuel. So Dame up top, then way down at the bottom, we're talking we'll like whoever starts between Graham and Wesley. And then in the middle, we have the Celtics of White and Brogdon. And then THT, he's shooting guard, small forward. If he's starting, he's only 3-4. He's good per minute, man. Like, don't sleep on him. He's really good per minute. So I like him. Killian Hayes, they put him back in the starting lineup. He's 4-7. Terrence Mann, with all those Clippers out we talked about, he's 4K. Those are kind of like last pieces for me. But in general here, it's for sure Sexton, almost certainly Dame, assuming that's who your favorite spend up is. I mean, he's definitely mine, so I would put him there. That's probably what we're looking at. Like, guard isn't great once you get past Sexton and Dame. Like, THT is good if he starts, but like after that, we're not looking at like standout plays here. But we don't need like standout plays here because we have one with Sexton. We have two great cheap ones with at center with Williams and Collins. So not a lot much more I want to go through there. Small forward. THT is probably who you put here. A guy I didn't mention at shooting guard, but maybe he's a little more in the mix here is Norm Powell, 5'7", kind of scoring dependent, but they need him to score because Kawhi's out and all those other guys got traded. So I think he's fine. One guy that like I'm still so surprised that his ownership is so low, and it makes sense just because of the way the slate's working out. But like, if you really are like worried about who you're spending on, or like can't figure it out, like play Jason Tatum. Like, Brown's out, Horford's out, Smart's out. Like, just I don't care if he's 11K. Like, I have the cheap stuff I like. I need points. Like, this guy should put up at least 50 DraftKings points tonight. Like, if the game gets out of hand, I know Boston's good, but like, how is the game getting out of hand if it's not through him? Like, if Hauser gets hot, if like the bench just runs away with it, but like, man, they're without 3 starters or whatever. So like, I would put Tatum up there. I could make a very good argument to put him above Giannis, actually. You save some money too. So, and Giannis played 36 minutes last night.
Yeah, it's just that price tag, 11-2. It's just I don't know. Like I want 11-2 for like a Giannis or a Luka, but
yeah.
You know,
I
realize those guys are 12-5 nowadays, but
I mean, the matchup is good. They just traded their best individual defender too. Like we were talking about, I'm pretty sure we were talking about this Monday, and he had 60. So, like, people don't think he has upside because they don't think he gets peripherals, and he doesn't really get them in like steals and blocks too much. But he gets, I mean, no Horford and the playmakers are out. Like, he should be able to get them tonight. So, I think he's perfectly fine as like a guy, especially positional too. Like, only because I'm talking about small forward. Small forward is the least. I should say my least favorite position on the slate when I'm talking about guys I really know I want to play. It's probably here. So that's mainly why I went on the little tangent on him. But I think he's perfectly fine in all formats. Now he's only 14% or whatever. So so there's not a lot I want to get into here because you're probably a spot you're filling out last. THT if he starts, Norm in the mid tier if that's where you're landing, and then Tatum, or I didn't mention Ant Edwards, I didn't mention Paul George. Those guys are fine up top too. So that's really it. Power forward, Tatum's there, Giannis is there. We already talked about those guys. A little further down than that is Jimmy Butler. And then if Roby starts, he's only 3K. So, like, if you want to go full stars and scrubs, throw Roby in. Like if you put, well, let me see what happens. If you put Roby in power forward, the guys that have tagging you have 9K per for the last 4 positions. Then you throw in Tatum, and you throw in Dame, maybe Giannis to see what you're left with. Probably that'd be getting a little thin, but not really. You probably still make it happen. So
A quick
that's
note on
pretty
that.
much it. Yeah.
The Spurs are starting Roby. They're also starting some guy named Wesley, who also appears.
That's the guy we were talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. He's Stoneman. He's the guy we were talking about, him or Graham. We have Wesley projected to start, so nothing's going to change. I don't think we had Roby projected to start, so I think his projection will go up, and I think he's probably who you're going to want to look at power forward now. And I talked about him a little on Fanduel too. I just 1 second while I do it. We got 14 minutes. I'm going to do a real quick, tiny little build here. Just want to see what happens if I put in Dame at point guard. I want to see what happens if I put in Sexton at shooting guard. I want to see what happens when I throw in Roby at power forward. I just want to see what I'm working with here because that's probably what I'd be doing. Let's see here. All right. That leaves you with 8-3. I want to see what happens if I put Tatum at small forward. Where are you? That leaves you with come on. There you go. 68 for their last 2. Like, I don't hate that. So yeah, I guess I don't have anything else to say really because I think it is. I don't want to like be too mean in case someone's sitting there and like I don't want to play Mark Williams and Zach Collins.
Sure.
Like I'm gonna play someone else. I don't want to be too mean by what I'm about to say, but I think you're a stone cold moron if you don't play both of those guys.
Well, nicely said. Means
so I'm done.
Down gently. Yeah. This build, like I just put in Paul George, Dame, and Giannis. I don't feel any play is too thin, and I still have money left over. Like this build is.
Or is this one of those things where you're like, I have 1,200 left, but I don't know who to? That's a classic Roth move.
I don't even know what to do with this money, but I'm locking that in, and I feel good about.
Yeah, have Dre tell you. Go to Dre. Dre will tell you what to do.
Exactly. So, Dre, kind of walk me through these GPP builds because as I'm plugging in these cheapies, I feel like I might have the same build that everybody else does. So, tell me how you get a little different here.
All right. So, can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, perfect. All right. So, I mean, like I said, Dame is a really good play. It's almost like the same plays as I mentioned before. But if you really want to get different, like what I would try to do, honestly, like if you have 2 spots left, maybe do like a little bit of a run back 1v1 or 2-1 if you can. I love that tonight, especially even as a big slate. We have some close spreads here, and then we have a couple high totals here. So like I said before with the Damian Lillard, if you're playing Damian Lillard, no one's playing Shy. Running back with Shy or running back with Giddey. I think that those are, let's go on DK. Okay. I think those are good viable options today as well. I don't know how. Yeah, I mean, with all the value, you should be able to get a guy like Giannis today, and he's going to be low owned. Get him today and run it back with Paul George. I think those are options that I think are like just on board. I'm on board with it all today. Honestly, it just makes a lot of sense because it seems like we're playing one side of the game for the most part, but not playing the other side. For what I'm seeing, for at least from my builds, at least that I'm getting, and how I set up my lineups right now. But I don't mind it. Then we got like Tyrese Halliburton coming in at 3% owned. I know he's a little bit expensive. I think he's a little bit of in play. James Harden on DraftKings, you have to consider playing this guy because he's a triple-double upside. He has triple-double upside on any given night, especially on a night like this. So to me, I think you should play him today. 9.8K running back with Julius Randle on the other side. I like him a lot over here. Chris Paul, even like the mid tier is going to go under owned completely here. So playing even a few guys like in the mid tier, I think would work out as well. I do like Tyler Hero a good amount, like I mentioned before, on the other side, and Chris Paul as well. Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin for Miami, I think are also in play. They're a little bit cheap, but I think they're also going to be they're good pivots off of some of the chalk plays, in my opinion. So I will go with them. Do not play Josh Okogie at all. please just eliminate him from your player pool. Don't even entertain it. And the guy like Bi Brandon Ingram is one of my favorite, obviously, players in the league. A 7.6K is too cheap for him. I understand the matchup is a little bit tough against Cleveland, but he can score at every single level. And I think he's just in a good spot today, honestly, with their team still missing Zion here as well. And I think Karis LeVert, if I'm correct, is out too. So I think that helps out as well here. I know Tim Hardaway is 6K, but without a guy like Luka, I think that he can still be someone you can use here as a low owned play. Even though we have other guys here that are cheaper. I want to know what you means. What do you think about Sam Hauser? Like, I know he's going to get some playing time, I think, off the bench, especially in the game against Charlotte. Like,
yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say he's the thing is a good guy to use as a pivot off of some of these cheap guys as well, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think people are getting probably a little skewed on their perception of him because of that game he had. It might have been earlier this week where he hit just like a ton of threes and just shot like excessively hot. So on an 11-game slate, I think you need an awful lot to go right. You probably can just find something a little better. That's my own personal opinion, but I don't know. I'm not the hottest of takes, but that's what I would do.
I think he is a fine tournament play. An okay tournament play. Little, obviously, very risky, but I think the upside there could also still be good for him here in the spot with Boston missing a lot of players. Grant Williams is someone else I think that you can play as well at 4.4K that I love to get to. I don't know why he's not getting much more ownership than what he today than what he is. I understand with all the other guys here, but we can't trust some of the minutes from these other teams like we talked about with the Spurs. So Grant Williams is someone else I think we should consider playing a lot more here today on the slate. Jimmy Butler at 8.4K is cheaper on here, so I like him a little bit more on this site versus FanDuel here, being that price. And then center is going to be the hardest to really spend up on, but it's just spending up will get you different here. So a guy like Giannis, Joel, Julius Randle, Bam Adebayo, Walker Kessler, those are like some of the main guys that I'll be looking at trying to get to and spend up on to get different. Robert Williams, even like we talk about the Charlotte guys, but Robert Williams, he has potential with Noah Horford to just smash here in this spot too as well. So that's someone I don't mind taking some shots on here too.
Okay, very good. Quick personal question. Of course, we're going to dive into everybody else's as well. I'm finding myself on all the Spurs value, Wesley, Roby, Collins, but I look at the total for Detroit. It's 120. It's one of the highest totals, and I don't have any Detroit. So if I was to take a piece of that game, what would you recommend?
Jaden Ivey, probably was one of my favorite pieces, or Killian Hayes, or Alec Burks. It's one of those three. I wouldn't play none of them together, but one of them individually.
One of them, just have a little run back for those three Spurs. I like it. All right. Let's go ahead and jump into the RG Discord. By the way, hey, if you're watching the show and you think, how much did this cost again? What did I pay? It's free. This is free content. And all that we ask is that there you go. You just give that little thumbs up on YouTube, a little like, make that happen for us. That's the payment. That's all we ask for. It's the low price of a like on YouTube. Let's get to some QQs. I'm jumping on over to the RG Discord, and I will start with Sean. He says, Dre, Fox less than 1% owned in FanDuel. Is that a good GPP play?
I like it, yeah. I think he's a good GPP play today.
Very good. Ball says DK Cash means Horton Tucker or David Wesley. Is that his name? David Wesley?
Blake Wesley. Wasn't David Wesley wasn't he like a Hornet, the shooter? The ears popping out a little bit? Or?
I thought he was jacked. I thought he was like.
You're thinking of David West. Or
I am. I'm thinking of David West. You're right.
Yeah. I would play. Well, it was TH. If THE started, I'm playing him.
Okay. FanDuel Cash 3v3 means Giannis, Hayes, THT. Or Paul George, Dame, and Wesley?
I kind of like the second one a little better.
Gosh, that's so hard. Raymond, FanDuel, GPP. Who do you like better, Mark Williams or Roby? Dre, FanDuel GPP, Mark Williams or Robbie?
Mark Williams.
Okay, very good. Freya's DK last piece means Wesley or THT?
I would still go THT on that one. Assuming
This is going to be one of those nights with these 3K guys where everybody gives me a flame emoji, but like Wesley only gets 20 points, and it's just not enough because some other 3K guy is going to go off for like 35.
Yeah, you're going to be feeling great about your flame emoji. Like, why am I not cashing? Those games start, you might not have the THT news by the time the Spurs game starts. So, but there's plenty of cheap stuff anyway. So I think THT is that much better of a play if he starts.
Mm-hmm.
So I would wait and not play Wesley. Wesley's not like, he can obviously do well, but it's like, you're not like, oh my God, I'm not playing Blake Wesley tonight. Like, it's going to be all right.
Yeah. And you just don't know with Spurs minutes. Like, you just literally don't know. Because Pop's not happy with your first rotation. You might sit the bench for the remainder of the game. He does that.
That is accurate.
Yeah. All right. Scrolling back up. Where do we go here? Okay. FanDuel Cash means Butler, Robbie, and Derek White, or Markkanen, M. Williams, and Brogdon.
I would probably do the second one.
This is a GPP question. I'm going to give it to Dre here. Although they have attractive price points, do you feel the Utah guys' ceiling could be capped due to a tougher matchup? Do you have any interest in some of those Utah guys?
I do have some interest in them. They can be, but they're going to get the minutes, and their prices are just too low. They can still get there. I would just like kind of fade it based on ownership. Like Sexton's is too cheap. 4K on DK is too cheap. To me, you have to play him on the side like FanDuel's, where I would be more willing to like fade that and see what else happens because it's a little bit more expensive.
Okay, very good. I saw someone in the chat. Keith said, did anybody talk about Pacers and Phoenix? I feel like we briefly mentioned Phoenix. There's just too many damn good plays. But Dre, you like some of those Phoenix pieces at least.
I would just prefer 8 and over on that side, honestly. Everyone else is just harder for me to get to.
Okay, very good. I keep losing where I'm at in the chat. DK Cash here. Derek White and Powell, or THT and Paul George?
I'll do the second one if THT is starting.
Do we know what Powell we're talking about there? Is that a Dwight Powell?
Norm
Powell. Okay. Was that a Cheers reference?
I don't know what kind of reference it was.
It's some sort of old show that was before my time, which you know a lot.
I don't even know if I was referencing anything. I just wanted to say it like that.
I think so.
Where's that coming from?
Like that, it sounds like going from "There's Something About Mary." My name is Norm.
My name is Norm. Pizza delivery guy.
Someone let us know what our reference is. It's embarrassing. We don't even know our own references. Joey says DKGBP, Roby or Wesley? Oh, that's a good question. I don't think we brought that up. Dre, Roby or Wesley?
Oh, I don't know. That's tough. I like Roby because I know how he. Yeah, I'm gonna say Roby. The fear of the unknown. So I'm gonna go with Roby here.
Okay, and in a shocking twist of events, I was actually right about the old show knowledge. It is a Cheers reference, even though I never watched TV. So,
do they still do? I haven't watched in years, and we're just basically about Lock. So we just did Lock. Do they on what is it? Not part of the interruption. The one before it. What's that? Around the horn. Do they still do the little like give you the point, the points up when you make a good point?
Probably.
If I was doing in charge of that when Dre just made that something about Mary reference, I would have like literally broken the thing. I would have just like
that show was so fun when it first started. It was so like it was such a unique, cool thing. That was almost must-see TV when I was in college. We would all gather around and see who won. And when Woody would have the little sign, write stupid stuff on. That was good stuff. Now
and I don't ever watch ESPN.
Yeah, right. Now everyone's just yelling at each other. It's just I'm oversaturated with that whole thing. Here we go. Conscious Machine says, by the way, David Wesley was a player and during his time with the Celtics, he came to my hometown and poked my eye after I stole the ball from him. It's a good story.
They playing on a pickup game or something?
I don't know. Maybe it was like a basketball camp. I once threw an alley-oop in-game to Matt Geiger. That's my claim to fame.
At a pickup game?
Yeah, it was like at a basketball camp. And it was a really bad throw, so it like was behind him, and he cocked back and like got it and just crammed it so hard. And I was like, "Oh, that was sick." He was like, "Yeah, that was maybe my best dunk ever."
Oh, nice. There you go, Roth.
Yeah. All right, we did hit the lock. We'll see if we get a couple little post-lock questions before we bounce here. ECS says, DK Cash, is 3 Spurs too many? That's where I landed, but I was playing a tournament.
Oh, I don't think it's too many. Definitely Collins, definitely Roby, and then Wesley's fine. Yeah, so I don't think it's too many.
All right. A lot of these were pre-lock. So here's the most important question, as it is nearly. Oh, by the way, hit that thumbs up for us, guys. This is a Friday show. It means he's drinking a beer. It's worthy of a thumbs up. Sean says the most important question of the day: Dre and Meansy, Chiefs or Eagles? Who you got?
Go ahead, Dre.
I got the Eagles all day, every day. Well, not all day, every day, but this particular matchup, I think the Eagles. Today, it's the Eagles.
Okay. Means?
I have no idea. I think the Eagles are better, but it's football, man. A couple plays and the game's flipped. So yeah.
I just feel so weird being on Team Eagles.
Yeah.
I know the Chiefs are good. I know they have Pat Mahomes, who is amazing, and yet everyone thinks the Eagles are going to win, and they're favorites. And I don't understand why. This team has won a Super Bowl, and that quarterback is good as hell, and I know it. And yet somehow I'm still picking the Eagles. I don't know.
We're all a bunch of donkeys, I guess.
Yeah, I think we're all a bunch of donkeys. The Chiefs might win by 3 touchdowns. I don't know. All right, with that, I think we are going to bounce on out of here. So good luck to everybody tonight. I feel like you got some winners there from this show. So that's to be clear. Hollow Bone says, "Hey, the Eagles won it in 2018." It's not like they have that, and that's a good point. I was more so thinking their quarterback. But we are going to bounce on out of here. So for Means, for Dre, for our wonderful production crew, always working hard behind the scenes, guys, we appreciate you. We love you, and we will catch you tomorrow. You have been crunched.